Although basically all of the details are, at least at the point that we are filming this, absent. Apparently, the Israeli government is ready for some sort of ceasefire under certain conditions at some point. Here's the statement. The political security cabinet unanimously accepted the recommendation of all security officials, the chief of staff, the head of the Shin Bet, the head of the Mossad, and the head of the National Security Council to accept the Egyptian initiative for a bilateral ceasefire, which will take effect at a later date. The chief of staff, the military echelon, and the head of the GSS reviewed before the ministers Israel's great achievements in the campaign, some of which were unprecedented. Seems ominous. The political echelon emphasizes that the reality on the ground will determine the continuation of the campaign. So that provides obviously a great deal of free space for whatever ever-changing interpretation of whatever needs to be seen to be happening to allow the ceasefire to end, I suppose. But theoretically, we've reached the ceasefire that we and others have been pushing for.
Yeah, so good news. Basically what a ceasefire means is that Israel feels like they've done enough damage. So Hamas had been calling for a ceasefire for days now. And then Joe Biden and the US dragged their heels for a long time. Finally, Joe Biden was like, ceasefire? And then he went a little further and was like, no, really guys, ceasefire. And partly what's driving that is what we're gonna talk about next, where Bernie Sanders and other progressive leaders in Congress are doing something unprecedented, which is actually having resistance within Congress to the Israeli right wing. And that almost never happens, it's happened now. And the recognition of Palestinians as actual human beings, previously unheard of in American politics. And so that's pushing Biden to push Netanyahu, and that's part of the equation here. But the biggest part is Israel usually stops. It's almost never, like you can argue about who started it in different conflicts. This one is inarguable. There's no question that the Israeli government started it by attacking Al-Aqsa Mosque. Now a lot of the media like Jake Tapper are doing revisionist history, which Anna pointed out yesterday on the program. And Sean Hannity and Jake Tapper, there's a rare point of agreement. They're like, the Israeli right wing is awesome. We will accept all of their propaganda that Hamas started it, and we'll leave out the fact that we were evicting Palestinians from East Jerusalem and attacked the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Of course you don't leave these out. Why do you think Hamas fired the rockets in the first place? So all of that is true, but at the end of the day, no matter who starts it, Israel always finishes it. And you can say, oh, if you're a fan of the Israeli right wing or just oppressive militaries in general, you go, yeah, we're the ones who ended. Yeah, of course, you have jets and fighters and giant bombs and missiles and the Iron Dome and the entire United States of America and its military behind you. Of course, you're the ones who choose when it stops because you have almost all of the power. So John, this is in essence them saying, we've killed enough. 65 children dead, 230 Palestinians dead overall, and the defense secretary for Israel, Benny Gantz, said that Gaza would burn, and it did. Netanyahu said that they would pay, they meaning Palestinians in general, and apparently they did. And now satisfied with what they got, the Israeli right wing now says, okay, we'll just go back to a normal occupation. We rob you of your freedom and keep you in open air prisons and deny you of all dignity and human rights. So back to business as usual after we did the pounding and the killing.
Yeah, assuming that the ceasefire holds, it's substantive, and that in 3 days we're not back into this. Which is entirely possible. I mean, who knows? But Netanyahu was saying just yesterday that he's not taking anything off the table, including a full military reoccupation of Gaza. So maybe we have that to look forward to. But at least as of right now, ceasefire. I suppose the remaining apartment buildings aren't impressive enough to demolish, I guess. That's the point you have to reach where they're finally ready to be done. And really fast, just because so much of this from Biden's a clear perspective, from the Israeli military's perspective, from Benjamin Netanyahu's perspective, is so abstracted from the conflict. This is about considerations. It's about considerations in terms of, have we dissuaded Hamas enough, or have I done enough to reinforce my domestic political situation? All these considerations that have nothing to do with the fact that they could have done the ceasefire yesterday, or 2 days ago, or 3 days ago, and maybe we would have 60 dead kids instead of 70 or 50 or maybe 40. Maybe we could have saved a couple dozen kids' lives as well as other civilians. But no, we have considerations. I'm having trouble forming a government. I don't know, I really want to send a strong signal. A few more dead kids, and then that'll probably accomplish it.
Yeah, and for the two things here about the ceasefire. One is, look, if you love Israel, this isn't about, okay, people who are pro and anti-Israel. I know that the world loves framing it that way, and everybody wants to see things in black and white. No, this is about right-wing governments abusing their power against the powerless. And so that is consistent throughout the world and throughout world history, and almost always how it goes. And that's what's driving this. Netanyahu, as John points out, he has this current political situation that is not favorable to him. I've said this on many shows before. He could not form a government. The other side was about to form a government, and they might have needed the Arab coalition for their to form that government. It's a parliamentary system, and now it's going to be much harder to form that coalition that does not include Netanyahu, but includes the Arab coalition within Israel. And he has got corruption charges that were conveniently delayed because of the bombing and the murder that Netanyahu started. Okay, so it isn't about one particular country. It's about the powerful versus the powerless. And that's just the reality of what's happening in Israel and also Saudi Arabia and Yemen, etc. But today's news is about Israel. And one other small consideration that might have gone into it, remember they say, Gaza might be reoccupied. It's kind of a joke, right? So Gaza does not control its own borders, and there has been a blockade for 7 years in Gaza. And so that means that during the bombing, number one, they could not escape. It's very residential areas, very densely populated, a couple million people there. And so they're just dropping bombs in the middle of people, okay? And they got nowhere to run. Number two is they were running out of supplies. Because of the blockade, they're having trouble with food, water, and they were down to half their medical supplies while coronavirus is raging. And then when the buildings get bombed and destroyed, people are forced into schools where the UN shelters them, but then they're all together and possibly risking more coronavirus spread. It is possible that some in the Israeli government, they're so right-wing that it feels a little unimaginable, but I hope there's still a shred of humanity and left in those right-wingers, might have thought, this is, or without the humanity, it's gonna look really bad for us if people start dying in mass, not just from the bombings, but from the fact that they run out of medicine and food. And then people might realize, forget the whole shred of morality thing. For right wingers, it's almost never into consideration. But in terms of the optics of it, some might have thought we will look even more barbaric, and people might begin to realize this isn't just a 2-week war. This is the fact that we've been occupying them and keeping them prisoner for over 50 years.
Yeah, and just really fast, I want to continue on from something that you had referred to. There are things that when you hear someone say them, either directly to you or in a conversation that you're watching, like a political conversation or a news coverage, that way more people should be offended just by hearing, because they are so inherently condescending. There is such a baked in assumption that you must be stupid that you would accept the way we're gonna frame this. And that would be referring to someone as being pro a country or anti a country. And we only allow it in 2 cases. Generally now, it's about Israel. You're pro-Israel or you're anti-Israel. Back during the Iraq War, you were pro-America or anti-America. Republicans still try to make it a thing. But if I were to say to you, are you pro-Canada? The hell does that even mean? Like their government, their people, their fresh maple syrup? Like which party of their government, a particular policy? Like if I'm against this pipeline he wants to build, did I then become anti-Canada? Are you pro-UK? What, like under Thatcher? Like it doesn't mean anything, that's the thing. But they deploy it strategically to mean that if you don't like a thing that a particular politician in a particular coalition of parties did, then you're against the whole thing, everything, and especially the people somehow, or the soul of the nation. And we roll that out for Israel, and we occasionally roll that out for the US to silence dissent. That is basically all it is. You don't hear people talk about, like, if we don't like something that Boris Johnson did. We oppose Boris Johnson. We're not anti-UK. If we don't like something that like Trudeau did or Sarkozy or something like that, we don't talk about that as being fundamentally about the country. So don't stand for it when it comes to these countries. It is obviously an attempt to deceive you, an attempt to silence you, and people need to be more vocal when they see it being used.
Yeah, John, that's such a great point. First, I want to correct myself real quick. I said the blockade's been in place for 7 years. I meant since 2007. So it's actually been in place for 14 long, brutal years. And that was immediately after the Palestinians held elections in what was theoretically unoccupied Gaza. They elected Hamas. And then Israel said, oh no, we didn't mean any of it. No, you don't actually get to rule yourself. And you voted for people we did not approve of. So now we will surround the prison and make sure you cannot get out. And we control what goes in and what goes out. So there is no freedom there. And to call Israel a democracy when it occupies millions of people is absurd. And finally, John, yes, Canada can have positions that are wrong if they were, for example, doing something to Native Americans within Canada, et cetera. And you could say that position of Canada in left-wing and right-wing governments is wrong. But you are absolutely right. You cannot then turn around and say, I am anti-Canada.
Like or you wouldn't say that someone else is anti-Canada. That would be so childish.
It makes no sense. It just means you're against that policy of Canada and you wish for the betterment of Canada and the people that they are affecting, that they would get better on that policy. To then say, that's it, you hate all Canadians.
Doesn't make any sense.
Why would I hate Canadians? I just don't like that policy and I wanted to change it so they get better and that would help them. And yet, John is 100% right. And the last thing I'll say about that is, think about why that's in all of our heads. Because the American media put that out like it was normal, like it was real. Like no news anchor I've ever seen said what John just said, right? In all this time. And you turn on cable news and everybody talks about, are you pro-Israel or anti-Israel?
Right? Not just cable news. So one website I go to quite frequently, Common Dreams, is a good website. And they referred to some group as being pro-Israel because it's out there. It's in our brains, it's infected us.
Yeah, it's absurd, absolutely absurd. We never, like for progressives, we don't buy into it in the domestic landscape. When when a right winger or a centrist or cable news anchor talks about being pro-America or anti-America, we all know that's absurd, right? Which America and which policy, right? And so California passed a $50 minimum wage. Love that. Does that mean I love all of America? By that logic, I guess, right? So again, completely nonsensical. The reason they do it in the case of Israel is because they want to say that if you disagree with Israeli policies, you're anti-Israel, and let's be honest, by extension, anti-Semitic. It is a way of shutting down the dialogue artificially for a specific purpose.
Yeah, and erasing people like those in Israel, Israeli citizens that are fighting for human rights for Palestinians. They don't exist, they don't count as Israel in this narrative.
Yeah, absolutely, and do you ever hear anybody talking about being pro-Palestine or anti-Palestine? No, they frame that as being, are you pro-Hamas? You better be anti-Hamas. We never talk about Palestinians, we only talk about Hamas. And then we call Hamas a terrorist group. So wait, they want a democratically held election according to the international community. No, they are terrorists. Well, how about Israel? They are boiled down to the good guys, and all the Palestinians are boiled down to the bad guys under the umbrella of a terrorist group, Hamas. And hence, you cannot allow the Palestinians to have humanity. And that's the game that's being played. And we're here to tell you, we refuse to play that game, and you should know what the reality is. And thank God you guys support us in being able to bring truth to American media, which apparently sorely lacks it. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.